wasn't an act of God. Wasn't it? It's okay to just look at the world and say, why? I don't understand. Why? Who are you? You know who I am.
Welcome to our service tonight. We all drink in the blood of Christ. Amen.
Amen, John.
That's Father or John to you, or Monsignor John.
Oh, yeah, my apologies, Monsignor.
Yes, indeed. We are talking about, this is our first time talking about a series. It's a mini-series. This is a self-contained 7-episode story. So it just kind of feels like a long movie. So that's why I'm making it qualify to do a Cult of Films on this. Coleman, welcome.
Yes, thank you, John. Thank you for having me back.
How was Crockett Island?
Crockett Island was great.
All right, yeah. Good crabbing?
Lots. Well, I got a lot of crabs.
Yeah.
Yeah. But...
before we start anything, I just want to say this series, Midnight Mass, is something that if you have any inclination of watching it, and I mean any inclination, like if you think that you're going to watch it, turn this off right now, because whether you love it, hate it, or lukewarm on it, the fact that you need to go in completely blind about anything, about everything, is everything for the viewing experience of this show. Obviously, I think it's worth your time to do so. So if you want to take my pre-recommendation, I don't even know what Coleman thinks about this yet. We haven't even talked about it off air, anything. But if you haven't seen Midnight Mass, turn this video off now and go watch it if you are looking to do that. If you've already seen it, or you really don't care, you just want to hear us talk about a show that you are never going to see, what the fuck is wrong with you? But also, welcome. Hit the subscribe button. Thumbs up, all that good stuff. So with that said, that is final warning. We can't say anything without
spoiling everything.
Spoiling everything.
Right.
It is just that. Made it to this somehow without even seeing a trailer. And I'm a big Mike Flanagan fan. I loved all his Stephen King adaptations. I love Gerald's Game. I love Dr. Sleep. Those two movies are fantastic. Oculus is great as well. I didn't see The Haunting of Hill House and The Haunting of Bly Manor before I watched this. I actually watched this, and then after that, I watched those two shows. It's strange that this didn't get ruined for me in some fashion. So I just want to bestow upon our viewers that same kind of warning and respect. So that was it. Your final warning.
I am so glad that you'll be with us for what comes next.
Coleman, what did you think about Midnight Mass?
You mean Vampires for Jesus?
Ah, there it is. And that's it. You're fucked now.
So sure. I didn't really know what to expect because you brought it up to me, and I hadn't heard of it. I didn't look at anything. I didn't read anything. I didn't watch anything. I was just like, all right, start fresh, like you said. And it took a while to figure out what the show was about.
Yeah.
It's a slow burn, a lot of setup, but very, very well done. I really enjoyed it. It kind of brought two of my favorite subject matters, or at least childhood subject matters, together, which is interesting takes and stories about religion. I've always liked different takes and stories on religion and vampires.
Yeah.
Because my nerd shit as a kid was so many vampires.
Oh, I didn't even know that about you. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. A lot of Anne Rice and other various vampire stories over the years. Really enjoyed vampires. So it was really interesting to see this show put together and kind of how it all played out into both of those themes.
See, and I thought this was something in your wheelhouse for two other one of the reasons was because of the allegory, because of the religion thing. I know that, just you and I talking as friends, not on this show, it's something that comes up a lot. So I'm like, I think he's going to really like the way that this is handled. Also, I tend to like the people talking in rooms subgenre, where you just get lost in two people really kind of playing off each other, and just these wonderful performances. Literally, two people sitting there philosophizing about what happens to them when they die for 40 minutes.
The more I have that dream, the more I just know that it's not in the cards for me. I'm not getting off this island.
That scene, that's kind of like the centerpiece of the show. But there's so many of those. And it's just like normal interactions. Mike Flanagan gives like 20 minutes, Riley and Aaron just walking on the street. And there's nothing interesting to look at. Like Crockett Island, the setting, it's ugly. It's fucking horrible looking.
Oh, yeah. Dying town on an island that everything is... I mean, the only people that are left there are the people that just refuse to leave.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So you have to really be confident in your writing skills and your actors to be able to pull off keeping people invested for literally 7.5 hours of movie. And I was completely enthralled throughout. Again, I kind of knew what to expect a little bit, although, now watching like Haunting Hill House and Bly Manor after this, I could see where there's the cinematic Mike Flanagan where he doesn't have as much time with his characters like in Dr. Sleep. I think Dr. Sleep is great. It's paced well, but it's paced like a movie. Where it's just like, yes, you do have time to flesh out characters, but it still has to have a 3 acts and be done and have people in and out of the theater in 90 minutes, or 2 hours tops. This one is just able to indulge and just flesh out everything. This is like sitting at the Thanksgiving dinner table where like watching a movie is like a fast food joint, It's just like there's so much time to settle in with these people, and everyone looks so cozy. She's wearing like mom sweaters the whole time. It's just like you feel like you're in the room with these people. And then when the turn happens and the horror and the terror actually get a chance to happen in the show, it's so much more impactful because it almost lulls you into a sense of, I'm just watching a drama, right?
Yeah, it is one of those that I would recommend to people. I'm jumping ahead of the gun there, but I would tell people to keep watching. And there's those shows that I've been told that before that I'm like, hey, like I watched 3 episodes and I couldn't do anymore.
Right.
And they're like, you got to keep watching. And it's one of those, even though it's a miniseries, it takes 2 or 3 episodes to get into what it's really about, because there's so much build up beforehand. So, I mean, that'd be my first recommendation is it's worth the wait, but just, you got to make it through 2-3 episodes before like it really starts all coming together.
I'm going to go scene by scene or even episode by episode breakdown. There are videos out there on the internet for that. I mean, if you're doing that, just watch the show. And if you watch the show, watch it again. Like, because there is so much in there. It's so dense. There's a lot. There's a lot that I missed on the first run through, and watching again, I was like, oh, okay, things start to fall into place a little bit more.
Yeah, I was just skimming it the second time, but even just skimming it went, oh, there's so much just like allusion to what's going to happen in the future. And some of the scenes were like side by side where in watching it again, I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that was like kind of setting this up. I didn't realize that she was explaining this scenario that is playing out. And some of those I did realize the first time. We're like, oh, look, they're all like back at that perfect age that, everyone should be, like when she was explaining heaven. But in kind of just even skimming it, I went, oh, there's a lot of that beforehand.
Our main character, I guess our POV character, at least seemingly so, Riley, played by Zach Gilford, who I love from Friday Night Lights, the show. He's a great actor. He is basically the character in Matt Saracen. For the people that don't know what I'm talking about, his character in Friday Night Lights is like this underdog, accidental quarterback and stuff, and he becomes like a small town high school football hero, and then he goes off to college and kind of does that, and it's like, oh, this is what happens to Matt Saracen later. He gets drunk at a party and he kills someone.
Yeah.
So it starts off with him. He's killed some girl. It's a DUI situation. He goes to jail for 4 years, and then it kind of picks up after he is released, and then he goes back to his ancestral home where the rest of his family lives in Crockett Island.
And then we find out that his like high school sweetheart has also just come back to town.
Cheerleader in trouble.
Yeah, now pregnant with her own story to tell. We don't really know what happened there. And then from there, we just kind of start learning about all of the different characters. Bev Keane, this bitch.
Yeah. We're not even being mean. That's like the nicest word we could say.
Yeah, just you kind of see what a terror she is from the beginning.
Crockett Island itself is a character as well. It's this, I mean, small town is saying it, that's giving it too much, right? It is literally 100, maybe 200 people living on this small, tiny little island off the coast of New York. It's a very, very Catholic community. So everyone, like Riley was an altar boy, everyone grows up and knows each other, or everyone grows up and gets the fuck out of there. But the people that stay there are fishermen or, some kind of hardworking. It's very blue collar, very, very religious.
And you meet the sheriff, who happens to be Muslim and moves there with his son.
It's almost as if nobody asked.
A nice guy, and it seems like a great sheriff, but is still getting Islamophobia from all of them, but in particular from Bev Keane. The main characters of the movie are so centered around the church and so centered around God, which is really what this movie's all about. There's a lot of even low-key Islamophobia, just in like, God finds a way for everyone,
right?
Even you, sinner.
He even will take you. Yeah, it really is about Riley's, because he also grew up in this, but he went off to become like some hotshot.com, and that's when he took life for granted. He lived fast, he ruined his life, he killed someone, and then in prison he became an atheist. Coming from this small town, everyone is Catholic, everyone is walking into each other's house, that kind of community. He went out in the real world, and the real world ate him up. And the same thing happens with Erin Green. She goes out and tries to become an actress, tangled up with the wrong guy.
Some things never change.
He beat her and then was just awful and needy and just abusive all around, and so she fled.
With her unborn, and so she goes back to the island. You could tell she has battle scars from her experience outside of the island, but she is still in the faith, a bit more clear-eyed, with a little bit more worldly experience than the other people of Crockett, but still has a strong center in God and all of that, where Riley
found it. I mean, so they kind of, the way that it shows them, they kind of reverse. So he was in God and then lost it and going to prison. She kind of lost it as a kid and then went out into the world and then found it again and coming back to Crockett.
So everyone goes to this church. They have a priest that's kind of the progenitor of the church on this island. His name's Monsignor Pruitt. At the end of his life, he's left the island. He's taking this holy trip to Damascus, and he's walking the steps that Jesus, supposedly walked and all that stuff. Something happens, and another younger priest is sent in his stead, in the form of Father Paul Hill. Everyone in the town just loves their traditions. They're just like, "Where's Monsignor?" They're constantly asking if he's okay, and he's like, "Yeah, he's fine. I'm just here for a little bit, and I'm just here to fill in." And Hamish Linklater was not on my purview at all before I watched this. This guy, give him fucking every role. However, doing impersonating his voice is as hard to stop doing as doing Marge from Fargo. Right? Once you start talking like Marge, you just want to go make some eggs, You start talking like Hamish Linklater in this movie, it's really hard to stop. And I mean that in the most respectful way.
I knew I recognized him from somewhere. I mean, it was like you see people and you're like, hey, I know that person from somewhere. And then I dug into their IMDb, and he was on the New Adventures of Old Christine or some crap.
Wow.
I'm like, it's not even something I really watched, but it was like, I recognize him from something. The rest of these characters, I'm like, a couple of them seem kind of familiar, and it's because they're from other shows of the same director.
Right.
Like Haunting of Hill House. A few of these characters were in that, and I'm like, oh, that's probably where I recognize them from, because that's the only thing I've watched that they're showing. So
yeah, and Kate Siegel, you'll see in almost all of Mike Flanagan's work, because that's his wife, and that's his muse, basically. He writes with her in mind, in my opinion. And she is a very different kind of actress.
She is the girl next door at 40 if the girl next door aged normally. That's
Sure.
when I was watching it, that's what I thought. Like, she's still, like, she's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Like, she's still a babe, but she just aged like we all do, like people normally do. You know, she
Right.
didn't maintain the crazy, like, have to be super fit or whatever, you know, the Hollywood aesthetic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like,
She's mom next door.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And just as far as her technique goes, you could tell she's a very theater driven, like theatrical, like she was right at home during all these like monologues and stuff, because and it's funny too, because I watched some interviews with her and Zach Gilford, and everyone's like, oh, you know, how was that going back and forth? And she's like, she was really geeking out about it. We're just like, if you pay me, I'll just read the lines. Like, and it's kind of true. Like, you could see that performance from him, but it really works because he's damaged goods in this, right? He's kind of
He is.
I did my best.
If he's not trying, his emoting is like just perfect. And maybe that's just his baseline is like sad puppy.
Yeah.
Which is what he kind of is throughout this whole thing, but it works perfectly.
Yes, but I think his performance is perfect. It's not grabbing the headlines like, you know, the person that played Bev Keane. She is a fucking just psycho. Like, and she does it so well, and it's so funny because she's like the nicest woman on the face of the planet, of course.
So and that's what I'm wondering. I'm like, how do you capture? So and when I'm watching throughout, like, it's a character, but I think one of the things I liked about this movie is all the characters are very real.
Mm-hmm.
The story is very real. You know, the background story before all the shit goes down, like it's all very well done, and it's all someone you know or could know or whatever. And the Bev Keens exist in real life.
Oh my God,
The
more of them
holier
than you
than
think.
now. I wield my religion as a fucking weapon, and I'm gonna throw it at you every chance I get. And like, I've known these people in my life and go, you're a terrible person.
Oh.
Like, I don't care how much you talk about God, like, you're using it to make you a terrible person. And she captures that so well.
Oh my God, like eerily well. And that is one of my favorite scenes in the entire show.
Yeah.
Riley's mom, at a point, just like, she's dead to rights. You know, everyone's kind of turned at this point, so she knows that she's a goner. And she goes, Bev, I just want to tell you, you're not a good person. And I was just like, oh my God, it just melted her. You know, it's just so good.
Oh, yeah.
Because, you know, she is literally like a con artist. Like, in the show, there's like, they constantly are referring to this giant oil spill that basically ruined the entire island. Miss Pius herself found a way to monetize that and funnel launder all this like insurance money from everybody, and built this like bullshit rec center that's just this empty building that no one wanted.
Right, because she was taking all the money from the church.
Yep. Oh.
And then saying it's all for Jesus.
It's all for Jesus. As far as the story arc goes, it's just so spot on, because there are those moments. I get, like, all my favorite moments. Like, oh, you know, I love all the Father Pruitt scenes and Riley, like in the AA meetings. All those back and forths are great. Mm-hmm. But those little tiny Bev Keane moments, like when all the shit's going down in the church towards the end, and there's this murder happening, you could just see she's like literally giving people poison so they die and they get, you know, reanimated as vampires. You see her look around, she's like, fuck this shit, and like goes in and hides in a storage closet, because she's like, she's a consummate con artist. Or even at the very end, when she literally fucking kills everyone because her own hubris, she burns the entire town down, because, and just leaves enough room for the
vampires.
the chosen that she chooses. Yeah.
Yes.
And then
that she chooses, like, she deems herself God throughout this. I mean, and that's kind of her story arc is like, I'm a child of God, and so I dictate what God wants. Mm-hmm. And the Monsignor, at least originally, had good intentions, although ill-intentioned.
Sure.
Like he wanted to do what was best, and a lot of it, I think, just came from the fact he was like at the end of his life with a lot of regrets, and he's like, I'm going to interpret this thing that I found and this thing that I have right now as God. And then Bev turns around and every argument, every conversation throughout the entire show, like she wields the Bible at people.
Yes.
She doesn't let people speak. She shuts them down. She just belts scripture at them that just backs whatever her story is.
And twists herself into a pretzel to make that work. Whatever she's weaponizing, it's always good for me, not good for thee.
Oh, 100%. And it doesn't matter what the topic is, what she's talking about, whether she just murdered somebody's dog, she'll use scripture and what a good, kind Christian she is to absolve herself of everything.
And the turns are so realistic. Like, Monsignor's turn is so cool. He was this old man. He stumbles upon this, what he calls an angel, obviously, like this fucked up vampire. That I want to see the deleted scene of him convincing the giant vampire to get in the trunk and get shipped to Crockett. Like, on the plane, were they talking? Was he just like, I want some peanuts too, Not right now. Can I have all the peanuts when we get back to Crockett, okay? Yeah.
Be quiet, Angel. I have to hide you in my trunk and make you turn all of my people.
He's elbowing the fucking, the steam trunk. Yeah, but, so all that happens. He's ingesting so much. And this is kind of ambiguous, because at a point, even though he is turned young, the angel doesn't, or the vampire, the angel, whatever, doesn't kill him. He finds him in this cave, he bites him, and then he like the angel kind of realizes this is my ticket out of this cave and to kind of start spreading this disease, because it's basically a parasite, right?
Yes, that could be one take.
I feel like this plays more like a disease than like a supernatural thing.
Well, the way they present it, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, he interprets it as an angel. They talk about it being like a disease, considering it's all God-based, and I like vampires. I just, likened it to vampire lore versus a disease, but the Doctor speaks of it that way, like it could be. So, I mean, either way, it's supernatural. Whether it's Jesus or vampires, it's supernatural. So,
right. I tend to think more like, biological. Like it's just some kind of weird disease. You think about all the world is a very big place. There's some fucked up corona, COVID-49 somewhere on a frog in the back of, a Brazilian tree frog or something that someone's going to get bit by, and we're all going to be real fucked,
Okay, disease, but what, it turns you into a man bat that lives forever?
Yeah, maybe.
Like, is that the end role that we just never saw? Like, that's the eventual transformation, is they're all going to be bat people?
That is interesting, because the only physical appearance change. No one gets fangs. It's just their eyes get that weird cat reflective thing. Yeah.
Well, in the physical, they all change back to their youngest, most perfect selves.
Yes.
So it's very much supernatural, and I feel like it's more of a story of heaven or hell, if anything.
Yeah.
Where he found a demon and decided it was an angel. But more than anything, I get this vampire vibe. Outside of vampires, usually stay at whatever age they're turned, whatever condition they're turned. They don't revert back to whatever the perfect age or whatever is.
Yeah.
Go read what the director had to say about it. I don't know.
Oh, he likes to keep it vague too. There are a few hints to kind of what happens afterwards, because I absolutely believe Mike Flanagan and Kate Siegel when everyone's like, Midnight Mass 2, right? They're like, fuck no. How? Everyone's gone.
Everyone died.
Yeah, besides two people, and it's like we didn't. We care about those two people, but
but they ended it in a way to let you know it's done.
It's done. It's done, and
which is also more vampire than disease.
Sure.
The way that they end it.
Yeah.
And suddenly, she just lets you know everything changed back. It closes the door, because it lets you know that the demon is dead.
There's two ways that are the most popular ways to interpret the girl that is paralyzed in the beginning. She's shot by another resident of the island named Joe Cawley, who is, oh my god, probably one of my favorite characters.
He's a great character.
Oh my god, just so good. Everyone's so good, but him especially is just, he has one of the most heartbreaking stories and arcs, and it's just it just rips your fucking heart right out. This young girl is paralyzed in this accident, and then by ingesting the vampire blood, it has regenerative properties. Monsignor Pruitt is 85 years old or something, but he drinks so much of it, he wakes up and he's 30 years old. He's his best self, right? He's still alive, but he just has so much where the other people, he's slowly giving everyone in the town that's attending mass like little bits of the vampire blood. He's mixing that in with sacrament. Yeah.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
let's talk about how fucked up that is for a minute. That he decides to give everyone in the town the vampire blood to revert them all to whatever they're gonna be, and claims them as miracles because he believes that God is the one that did all of this.
Right. But again, his art makes sense. Like he is he's a devout, holy person. This miracle has happened to him. And then immediately he starts thinking about someone else. He starts thinking about his daughter. He starts thinking about his wife. And that's a great reveal later on where, conversely, Bev just says, how could I turn this into more power for Bev Keane?
It is good in how it's done so well.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's all these miracles and like, I didn't put the sacrament thing together. It wasn't until the end where they kind of show it and you go, oh, it's the blood. The blood of an angel.
In one of Aaron Green's many monologues, and I'm not saying that is a bad thing, I'm saying it's a good thing. She talks about her childhood abuse with her mother. Her mother was an alcoholic. She goes into this horrible story about how her mother made her clip like a dove's wings or like a pigeon's wings or something, and how it just affected her so much. However, that's how she gets to save the day at the end, right? She clips fucking thing.
I didn't even put that one together. She clips his wings.
Clips his wings.
The only complaint I had initially is in the beginning. Man, so many spoilers, everyone. Sorry. But in the beginning, I'm like, why do they have these young actors like made up to be so old?
You're like, that's old people makeup. That's old people makeup.
It's
not even really. I'm not saying it's bad. But it's very obvious.
Yes. Like, he can't be that old.
Right.
At this point, Henry Thomas played Elliot in E.T., everyone, if you weren't aware.
Yes. Another Mike Flanagan staple in all of his movies and shows.
Oh, is it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's in everything.
Really, the only gripe I had, that and the fact that the vampire, like, didn't have fangs. And when he, like, fed on people was just disgusting.
So sexy. Yeah. My wife kept going, ew, like, what the fuck is he doing? Is he humping her? I'm like, kinda?
Yeah. It was, the way he fed was so disturbing.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he was entranced enough that she could cut the shit out of his wings.
Right.
While he did so.
Which it shows like that was a thing before when the two kids kind of stumble upon the wrong house when they're trying to hide because the whole town's going to shit and the two kids hide in this abandoned house and like that's the spider's web, right? That's where this angel's been taking, people just to feed, just to keep them going. And they're literally standing like almost trip on this thing, but it's so into like when it's eating, you can't break its focus at all, and that's why just that little scene right there makes it so believable. It's like she's slicing his wings open, but it's that thing where once he's feeding, you can't move him or anything.
He's in the zone, man.
He's in the zone. I love it's left very ambiguous why Father Pruitt dies in the first place because he's doing his thing. He's making people drink the blood and whatever. And then he's just getting sicker and sicker. And I'm like, oh my God, is Bev poisoning him? Like, what the fuck's going on? But I think, and this isn't spelled out anywhere, this is just what I believe. So very well could be that Bev was that crazy of a bitch because, I mean, that sets it up that she does poison the dog. She has this rat poison thing. It makes the movie makes it a point to show that she's in this closet a lot, like messing with this rat poison. So,
yeah.
I mean, at first I'm like, she is giving all of Father Pruitt's meals to him. So I wonder if she's like, I don't like this guy. I want to get rid of him. I want to kill him to get him out of the way. So either she could be the priest or she could try to find, what happened to the other one. But I think that he just ingested too much of he like got a critical mass of the vampire blood, and that's what kills him. So he comes back, and then, the stereotypical hunger kind of sets in. Joe Colley, who we mentioned before, he's the town drunk. He's the lovable loser, but he goes in, and then he winds up, Father Pruitt winds up killing him. He eats him to death. But the next day,
And sucking on his brains.
sucking on his brains. Oh, it's a fucking scene right out of From Beyond. The next day, he's like in a corner, like Father Prude's in a corner, just like, what the fuck? And I just love how realistic his reactions at first are, because Bev walks in and it's just like business as usual. She's like, get dressed. You know, what are you doing? Like,
You wrap up the body.
Yeah.
You take him, put an anchor on his ankle, sink him in the bottom of the goddamn ocean. Let's go.
yeah.
Come on, everybody.
And everyone's like, I guess we better do it. And then happened. What? I don't know. Like, why did you do that? I don't know. Like, it's just, it's
Yeah.
so good the way he plays that, because he's like, I have no idea. I guess the case to be made for these long form movies, because if this was 90 minutes, we wouldn't have gotten any of that shit, right? Like,
No, they would have had to pack all that. Well, they just would have had to pack all the action into the movie to get close to the same effect. But you wouldn't have had all that character building and the arcs for each person that I think really played into the end of it. Like, it really played into how it all played out, like the story arcs did. So
going back to the old person makeup for a second, it did have that fun little game of, because they started like walking back there, they started like taking the makeup off little by little as they would go to mass and stuff, and reverse age. It was like the Benjamin Button thing, and that's why I was just like, I didn't even know, because I didn't know anything about this. I didn't know who was in it, but that's when I was just like, oh shit, that is Henry Thomas, and then oh shit, that is Alex Esso, because she is like in full on 90-year-old old lady makeup, starry eyes, and she's in Dr. Sleep and all that. And I'm a huge fan of Alex Esso, but it took until episode like 5 or 6 where I'm like, oh shit, she's in this. Like, it was a fun little game of, like,
she was the most obvious one.
Yeah.
And some of them were more subtle.
Mm-hmm.
So hers, because she went back from like 80 something to 20 something, it was more obvious, especially as the show went on, it progressed, like she was aging faster. But like Henry Thomas, the first episode, I was questioning, like, is that Henry Thomas?
Ouch.
It looks like him. Like, he was just ouch. He was aged more. Backwards aging on him was more subtle.
Yeah.
When I realized it was Henry Thomas, I didn't realize it's because he looked younger.
Right.
I just went, okay, it is Henry Thomas. Like, I was right, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that he had unaged by like 10 years or something.
Right. Can we just talk about Raul Coley too? Like, oh my god, he was so good. He just took that like Clint Eastwood sheriff, but as like the other, and just his scene with Annabeth Gish, who plays the doctor.
What if we were interlopers? What if we were infiltrators? What if we were double agents and they fucking panicked?
Everyone gets a chance to shine. Like, Mike Flanagan passes the ball to everyone. Everyone gets a chance, like, to make a 3, and that's awesome. And the person that you know the least about, really, is Bev Keane, and I like that. I like how the only thing that we know about her is how shitty she is.
Everyone says she's a bitch.
Yeah.
We don't actually know her backstory. We just know that everyone says she is the devil.
You're right. Yeah. And I mean, that's all you really need to know, right? Like, I think he did that on purpose, where he did not want to make her have a sympathetic bone in her body for the audience. It's basically revealed that she is the true villain, right? Even more so than the fucking angel, because Angel's just whatever, this freak of nature or spiritual or whatever. It's just trying to eat, and it's an insect. It's trying to reproduce and eat and survive and spread, right? Like, where Bev Keane is the most conniving, Machiavellian.
The scariest part.
Yeah.
Like, this terrible, terrible person. Like, yeah, the vampire thing's just doing what it does.
Right. Yeah.
Outside of the fact that somehow it can act civil around people, which is interesting.
Kind of.
When it's told to.
I mean, it definitely. It's like an ancient being, and we don't get a lot of backstory on that either, and I think that's a good thing, because it's the less you know, the more you don't get to be like, oh, well, that's, you poke holes in it, figuratively, and
it's up for all this interpretation that we're having right now.
And that's what makes it fun, because, whatever, vampire, cool. It's the fact that it's like vampire in a town full of zealots is what makes it so much fun.
They believe that it's making them Jesus.
Yeah, and especially nowadays, like, you think about the world and like the social climate now, and then like go to like a little hillbilly town. You're trying to say that this isn't like 100% what would happen?
Oh yeah, no, they're all gonna believe the guy up front saying you're gonna be part of God's army.
I'll meet you at the Whataburger at 4 a.m. for mass. We'll do sacrament in styrofoam cups. Let's kind of get into like our favorite scenes, and we've kind of been sprinkling it in as we've been talking. So Alex Esso's character, the woman in the old lady makeup who de-ages, like, and she's viewed as like this miracle as well. She kind of picks it up pretty quick. Something's wrong, and you know, something's not right. But and at first it's played kind of weird. It's just like, well, why? How did she get that like quick turn and like realization? Well, it's because she and the young priest, you know, back in his youth and her youth, they had an affair. And he's actually the father of the doctor character, of Annabelle Gish's character.
I'm going to interrupt real fast, like a quick callback, one that I got in just skimming.
Mm-hmm.
So as she's getting younger, and she'd had Alzheimer's, so she's getting younger and her memory's sharper and she's better, and she's like on it. And so as her daughter, the doctor, continues to try to test her, she asks her a bunch of questions like, where are you born, and all this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Alex Esso, Mildred, just like she's answering, she's rattling them off.
Yeah.
And then she asks, who is my father? And she takes a couple beats.
Oh, that's right.
There's like a pause on it.
Yeah.
And then she like says who, you know, the man that raised her was.
Right.
Because as she's coming back, she had to go, okay, can't tell her that he's the dad.
Right.
Anyways, continue.
Yeah. She says the husband's name because that's who she told her who was her biological father. You know, we find out later that it was him, and that's the whole reason why. Yes, this miracle happened to him, but then he quickly is just like, this is my second chance, like second chances at life, to have eternal life and live the life that I wanted to live before, because the vampire winds up killing her. She wakes up and she turns into full, you know, Alex Esso, and they're actually having this conversation, and you know, he tells her, he's just like, I basically did this for you, to be with you, because we, you know, if you would have asked me to leave the parish, I would have, and she's like, we couldn't have ruined everyone's life to do that. No one's supposed to get a second chance. No one's supposed to get a second life. We're supposed to get old and fade away. That's how it's supposed to be. And that's that moment. Oh, that, you know, talking about one of my favorite scenes, that is like such a kick in the nuts, because no one's really mad at him, because everyone kind of gets it, right? Like he winds up trying to do the right thing in the end. It's way too fucking late. He's murdered the whole town. Still trying to do it for a just reason.
They do a really good job of making you like, not the bad guys, but just like you have sympathy for Riley in the end. And honestly, some of my favorite scenes, just the conversations between Riley and Aaron, just because the conversations they were having were so real. And like what I was saying earlier, like all these characters are very, very real, right? And the conversations they're having are very real. They're tangible. They're real life, like conversations that people have, you know? So you start at the beginning and he killed someone. And just think about if you met someone in real life. Think about if we first met and then I just kind of let it slip at one point. Like, yeah, I killed some kid in a car wreck 20 years ago, but just act normal. Like, you wouldn't think about me the same way. Like, you never would.
And he doesn't think about himself the same way.
No, he doesn't, which is what makes you sympathetic, because you understand that he's truly grappling with what he did and has been forever and has been tortured by it. And you understand like the torture that she's going through, and you know, the stuff she went through with her mom, the stuff she went through with losing her baby.
We didn't even talk about that.
About it all.
There's so much.
Every scene with them was just so well done, because they opened up to each other so much in like such a realistic way, with like such realistic problems, you know, grounded around whatever ridiculousness was in this movie. Like, I love their talk about death and what happens to you when you die, and like one of those moments where you have a sense of mortality, like, oh shit, what happens when I die? Like in watching this show. So all those scenes were just very, very
their
well
relationship
done.
is so mature and uncinematic, because if this was a lesser movie, I love playing this game, if this was a lesser movie or a lesser show, they would have slept together on the first night. they would have, there would have been so much passion, so much heat, and it would have just been a hot, steamy scene, you know, oh, we've been apart for so long. And I can already see the scene, like they're both laying on their backs, you know, where it's just like their chest up and they're just both sweaty. It's like, oh, I missed you. I bet you didn't find that on the island or off the island. You know what I mean? Like we've seen that shit so many times. And this was like sweet and sad.
But you could do anything. You always could do anything.
Maybe it wouldn't have been a relationship, but maybe it would have been. It was just so much more deep than that. And that's hard to capture. Oh my God. The money shot of the fucking flick, though, was not even on camera. It was during the credits. He is turned. He becomes a vampire also. He spends the night basically soul searching and trying to figure out if he could exist this way. You know, he gave up his life when he get behind the wheel and kill someone. So he basically went to the island to die and to fade away, right? He shot his shot. Yeah. He fucked up so immensely that now he was just going to fade away. The last person that wanted a second shot, the last person that wanted a second life was Riley, where, you know, Bev and Father Pruitt, their hubris is just like, no, you know, this is a gift from God. And Riley's like, fuck God, I don't believe in this shit. It's played so well. It's a show don't tell type moment where he's just going from place to place. He goes back to his house and he's looking at his parents. He's testing himself to see if he could exist this way with, you know, with the people that he still cares about. Obviously, he's just seeing them as these like glowing neck things. Being an addict, being an alcoholic, I could control this, but it sucks, and I don't want to. Like I'm not gonna be able to satiate myself. He's not gonna fall off the wagon, even as a vampire. He's not gonna go and kill someone. He makes the decision to sacrifice himself for her in a way where, of course, anyone that's telling someone else this, like, I'm a vampire now. I'm a vampire! 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 You're not going to believe it. So he shows her. They're out on a boat in the middle of the water, and the sun just wrecks him. And her fucking wailing, and then keeps going, and the whole credits play with just the sound of boat water and her with this guttural fucking like Cannibal Corpse wail.
So what do you think happens when we die?
The chef's fucking tongue kiss. It's so good.
What a baller move the way he did that. And when they killed him, and this is, I guess, one of the fun things about watching a show, even if you can binge it, watching a show versus a movie, when they killed him, I'm like, I didn't like him at first, but you know, when it happened, I'm like, oh shit, no, you didn't. Like, I just started becoming invested in this character. Like, I just started having sympathy for him and go, oh shit, is this going to be that kind of show? And so I was so happy when they brought him back, vampire, whatever you want to call it, as one of God's army. He's like, I don't believe in God. Fuck this shit. And just went out in the most baller way. But again, they have this very real conversation where he's out there and he's telling her a story the whole time. And that whole episode is basically him sitting in a room with Monsignor, like just talking the whole time. That's the majority of the episode. In the end, she goes, well, you brought me out here in the middle of nowhere, blah, blah. And he goes, yeah, so I would have nowhere to go. And then just cries.
Oh my God. I am a very reactionary person. I know you know, but maybe the audience doesn't know the extent of it. And as soon as the credits rolled, my wife rolled her eyes and said that was kind of shitty. And I was like, top 5 greatest shows of all time. Like, and I get it. Like, a lot of people that I talk to, a lot of people that I even do this show with, other people that I do the show with, they're like, yeah, good, but it was slow, or you know, just too much dialogue or whatever. And all of that, all the criticism for this, I could see, because it's not meant for everyone. And this is kind of going into our, you know, who is this meant for segment. But it's definitely not meant for everyone, in my opinion. Who do you think this, would you recommend this first? And who would you recommend it for?
I mean, I would definitely recommend it because I love it. I honestly don't know who I would recommend it for, because there's so many elements to it. Like, it's not a horror fans
Right.
movie. What was that movie? What was our movie?
House 2.
no.
Grandpa's drunk again.
Two guys. The idea of manhood.
That's why I knew that you would love this.
Like, yes, yeah. So it's like people that like a movie like that, where it's just very dialogue and story driven, and then understand there's going to be horror in it. So like a horror fan has a wide range, I guess, is where I'd put that. Like, I'm not a horror fan, but I'm a vampire fan. And then I'm this kind of storyline fan. Like, so many people that I know that are into the horror genre are just into the horror genre and not like movie fans, you know? So I think that it's for the horror fan with like a real appreciation of story-driven movies and shows.
This is the best Stephen King film that's not written by Stephen King. It just has that, like you said, character building. It's all character-driven. It plays more like a drama with a dash of horror. There is some terrifying moments in this, and I mean, the horror, that's the thing. It's just like, it's so well done as a horror film, but it's so sparse that it doesn't play as a horror film. Because the moments where it's like, oh God, it's like, there's no jump scares, but, you know, there's a point where the sheriff is tucking his kid into bed. He looks down, and there's the fucking thing's face. It's not coupled with a loud, like, obnoxious horror, you know, jump scare sound. It's not like someone walking down the stairs and then someone behind them going, hey, what are you looking at? You know, there's none of that cheap shit. It's just like, there's always stuff in the background, and that's what's creepy. It's like, you see it, it's like, oh fuck, those are eyes. When they're on that little tiny island, it's like, there's eyes over there. I know there's eyes over there. But it like stays in the background and the kids are still talking. It's like, this is fucking creepy. Yeah. And you're just always waiting for it, right? You're always waiting for that, the boo, and it like almost never comes. And that's what it's like, oh my God, it's like a horror edging.
What a great description, John. And for those of our listeners that don't know what that is, look it up.
Just make sure that you're an incognito. Obviously, we can't recommend this enough. You know, not to everyone, but to who would like this. I mean, definitely see it. I mean, I hope that you all didn't stay through this entire thing and not have seen this, because that would just be a tragedy, because this is definitely worth time. The next iteration of this, because, you know, everyone's like, yeah, Midnight Mass 2. The next project is called Midnight Club. Completely different. So Flanagan likes to do kind of like the American Horror Story thing, where they did Haunting a Hill House and then Haunting a Blind Manor, where neither of those things are connected. It's almost like an anthology system, where Midnight Club, I guess, is going to be set in this hospice situation with a bunch of teenagers, and all of them are kind of telling ghost stories to each other until they like die or whatever. I don't know. The only thing I know, and it's probably too much to even know me saying that, but I know Zach Gilford's in it, and our girl Samantha Sloyan, who plays Bev Keane, is also in it. That's the only two that I know that are returning for sure. So I can't wait for that. That's coming out in October of 2022. I mean, at this point, do you want to go back and watch all of the Mike Flanagan stuff that you haven't seen yet?
I'm curious now. Yeah, I definitely am. It's made me curious to go watch Dr. Sleep and Haunting of Hill House. I watched. I don't recall because I've watched so much since then. But I remember
I
liking
cried like a fucking baby during that show. Oh, that one. Oh my God. Talking about tugging at the heartstrings. I also binged it in like a day. And so I was like at 3 a.m. I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm sad or tired.
Or tired.
I'm emotionally edging right now. That is our show on Midnight Mass. Check it out. It's on Netflix, and it will be always, because it's made for Netflix. So lucky you. This will never cost you anything more than a Netflix subscription. If you like this very show, The Cult of Films, you could check us out on your favorite podcasting sites like iTunes and Spotify. Leave us little ounces, ounce files of vampire blood. Can people even find you anymore, Coleman?
They can find me occasionally here on The Cult of Film. You can also find me at Coleman Yeti on Instagram and Twitter. Can't really find me there, but you can send me something if you want. I might see it in a year. And also, you can occasionally find me on the YouTube channel, Cascade Backcountry. going on cool adventures with a friend of mine, and I should have a new one coming up in a couple weeks around Christmas time. So spend your Christmas watching me.
I am John the Host. You can find me at John the Host on Twitter. You could also follow this very show at The Cult of Films. Please thumbs up the video, share it around, tell everyone we're talking about cult films, and now apparently Mike Flanagan, elongated movies. We're broadening our horizons a bit. And until next time, Coleman, I didn't tell you, but this wasn't just wine. But we have been doing this podcast for so long. I see the sun coming up, and oh!